A reading from the first letter of St. Paul to the Corinthians. Brothers and sisters, as a body is one, though it has many parts, and all the parts of the body, though many, are one body, so also Christ. For in one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, whether Jews or Greeks, slaves or free people, and we are all given to drink of one Spirit. Now the body is not a single part, but many. Now you are Christ's body, and individually parts of it. Some people God has destined in the church to be first apostles, second prophets, third teachers, then mighty deeds, then gifts of the healing, assistance, administration, and varieties of tongues. Are all apostles? Are all prophets? Are all teachers? Do all work mighty deeds? Do all have gifts of healing? Do all speak in tongues? Do all interpret? Strive eagerly for the greatest spiritual gifts. The word of the Lord. The responsorial psalm is, we are all his people, the sheep of his flock. We are all his people, the sheep of the flock. Sing joyfully to the Lord, all you lands. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come upon him with joyful song. We are all his people, the sheep of his flock. Know that the Lord is God. He made us. His we are, his people, the flock he tends. We are all his people, the sheep of the flock. Enter his gates with thanksgiving, his courts with praise. Give thanks to him, bless his name. We are all his people, the sheep of his flock. For he is good, the Lord, whose kindness endures forever, and his faithfulness to all generations. We are all his people, the sheep of his flock.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus' father and mother were amazed at what was said about him. And Simeon blessed them and said to Mary, his mother, "Behold, this child is destined for the fall and rise of many in Israel, and to be a sign that will be contradicted. And you yourself, a sword will pierce, so that the thoughts of many hearts may be revealed." The Gospel of the Lord. On this feast of Our Lady of Sorrows, I like to speak about a woman that I've known, a mother, who went through many sorrows in her life. Her name is Jean, and she ended up living with her family in Chicopee, Massachusetts. But I was close friends with this whole family for many years. Well, anyway, when her youngest daughter had a little toddler and then a brand new baby, her youngest daughter, who was also named Jean Marie, died suddenly of a stroke, leaving these two little ones. The hardest thing I ever did was to go up to Chicopee and do after doing Jean Marie's funeral, doing the baptism of that little baby. A few years later, her youngest son, Kenny, died of AIDS. A few years after that, her oldest son, Don, died of AIDS. A few years after that, Jean did die herself. And I just want to say, through all those things, Jean was in great sorrow, of course, but after her daughter died, she said to me, somebody gave her the book by Rabbi Kirshner, When Bad Things Happen to Good People. And she said, And now I went up for the baptism for that little one, scared to death, literally, like, what am I going to say here? And she says to me, just before, she says, or right after, she says, I read this book by Rabbi Kushner, and I realized where God was in all this. God was with my daughter, Jean Marie, with open arms, welcoming her into heaven. And God was with me and my family, because when our hearts literally broke, God's heart broke with us. And he's been crying with us and mourning with us and getting us through this. She didn't know that soon after, she would lose another son and then another son as well. And finally, she died. She died on this day, the feast of Our Lady of Sorrows. Not only that, her funeral was in her church in Chicopee, New York, which is the Church of Our Lady of Sorrows. Who could plan those things? So Mary was with her through the whole thing because Mary kept leading her to Jesus. That's what Mary does. Mary leads us to Jesus. The focus is not on her, it's always on her son, Jesus. That's what she wants. That's what she does. That's how she leads. That's how she led Jean. And that's how she leads us. Mary went through so many sorrows over her son. She had a lot of joys too, as Jean had so many joys of her family, incredible family. But then came the sorrow, as it does from time to time for all of us. But we know that after her son died on that cross, and she's there at the foot of the cross, and the sorrow that she was feeling with her dead son in her arms, the Pietà, so then 3 days later though, she had the amazing joy of the resurrection, that her son rose from the dead. She's always leading us that way too, as she led Jean to resurrection too, in Jesus' arms when she went to heaven with the biggest part of her family already there waiting for her. So in all of our lives, I've always said, God did not promise us a bowl of cherries when we follow him. Quite often, there's the cross to carry, always. There's always the cross to carry one time or another in our lives. But Mary leads us through that cross, to the cross, through the cross with Jesus. She's always leading us to Jesus. So today, no matter what we're going through in our lives right now, remember that the resurrection always comes. It always comes in our life. We don't want to go to the point of ever feeling hopeless about something. If we are going that way, we have to go and get help. We need help if we're going in that direction, because that's not where we're to end up, in hopelessness. We're to end up in resurrection. As everybody does who follows the Lord, we end up in resurrection. So today, no matter what we're going through, let's remember what's yet to come. There's still joy to come in all of our lives, as it did for Mary, as it did for Jesus, who sits at the right hand of his Father. Let us stand for the prayers of the faithful.